Hello, welcome to our RecapPlus channel with me, Matthew. Today we will watch a recap movie called Lost Bullet 2, released in 2022. This is a spoiler content video. So please turn on the subtitle and let's start the story. Lino lay in the hospital bed, recovering from his injuries sustained during his fight with Marco. Julia, who had been at his side, anxiously waited for him to wake up. When he finally regained consciousness, his first question was about Marco's capture. To his disappointment, Julia informed him that Marco had managed to escape, even though she had handcuffed him. Lino's anger grew knowing that Marco had eluded the police. In the prequel of the movie, it was revealed that Marco was responsible for killing Lino's brother. Furthermore, Marco was the only eyewitness who had managed to put Areski, a corrupt cop who had killed Lino's former boss, Charras, behind bars. After a few weeks, Lino had recovered sufficiently and resumed his mission to find Areski. He began by monitoring Areski's wife, Ann, hoping that Areski would eventually return home to her or his son. However, Julia discovered Lino's actions and advised him to stop, citing Charras, their deceased former boss, who would not have approved. Julia promised to station 2 officers near Ann's house in case Areski returned. Despite her warnings, Lino was determined to continue his pursuit and return to Ann's house that night. He observed 2 police officers briefly, but they left the scene. While Lino remained in his car, 3 suspicious-looking men broke into Ann's house. Realizing the danger, Ann sought refuge in her son's room. Lino, sensing that something was amiss, rushed to the house. He incapacitated the first intruder, and then, upon entering the house, confronted the other 2. He successfully thwarted their attack and rescued Ann and her son. After subduing the intruders, Lino called the police for assistance, and Julia arrived to apprehend the criminals. She expressed her frustration with Lino for not alerting the police promptly and becoming personally involved in the situation. Julia proposed that Lino rejoin the police force in the narcotic bureau and handed him the keys to Charras' car, which he could use for his fight against crime. That night, Lino visited a warehouse to locate the car. As he entered the vehicle, memories of Charras being shot while inside the car flooded his mind. A year passed, and Lino and his team successfully battled drug criminals. He meticulously restored Charras' old car, which was now ready for action. One day, Lino engaged in an intense car chase as he pursued an Audi suspected of transporting a large quantity of drugs. The chase continued for an extended period, nearly reaching the Spanish border. Realizing that the situation was dire, Lino attempted to use his car to block the Audi, ultimately causing it to crash. They apprehended the drug dealer with the assistance of a Spanish police officer named Alvaro. Lino later discovered that Alvaro was a friend of Charras who had been deeply affected by Charras' death. Alvaro was also searching for Marco and Areski, who were involved in drug trafficking in Spain. After their successful operation, they returned to their base. Ann's arrival at the base revealed that she and Lino were now in a serious relationship. Julia appeared somewhat melancholic upon realizing this, likely because she had previously been involved with Lino. Meanwhile, Areski continued to roam freely in France. He took a break in the middle of the road to relieve himself while assessing his surroundings. Areski then contacted an agent named Yuri to discuss a plan to eliminate Marco. However, Yuri declined involvement, deeming the plan too risky. It became evident that Areski's scheme to kill Marco was driven by his desire to erase evidence of his crimes, and Yuri was revealed to be an associate of Alexander, a division head of the narcotic bureau who had been supporting Areski. Areski also knew Marco's whereabouts. Lino, while rebuilding his car, aimed to equip it with formidable weaponry. His remarkable skills in repairing and modifying cars allowed him to install a weapon capable of generating potent and lethal lightning. He made a solemn vow to use this power only in situations of extreme danger, near the brink of death. Shortly thereafter, Lino received a phone call from someone claiming to be from his hometown, informing him that his godmother was gravely ill and urgently requested his presence at the provided address. Lino set out in his enhanced car, carrying a bouquet for his godmother. Upon arriving at the address, Lino was astonished to find Marco waiting for him in the room. Given his relentless search for Marco, Lino wasted no time and immediately attacked him without uttering a word. It was later revealed that the person who had called Lino was a subordinate of Yuri's, who had orchestrated the meeting to have Lino eliminate Marco. Additionally, Marco had been secretly harbored by the police all along, a fact Lino was unaware of, as he posed a significant asset in their pursuit of Areski. Julia arrived at the location where she believed Lino had found Marco, only to discover that she was too late. Lino had taken Marco to the police station to confront Moss, his boss, and seek the truth behind the ongoing issues. Marco disclosed that the police had assisted him in escaping and provided him with a hiding place, information Julia had known all along. This assistance was to protect Marco from Alexander, a division head of the Narcotic Bureau who had been tailing him to help Areski eliminate evidence of his crimes. Alexander was effectively the one aiding Areski and covering up his actions. A heated argument ensued between Moss and Marco at the police station, with Yuri eventually arriving and preparing to take custody of Marco. Moss initially resisted, knowing that Marco held crucial information about Alexander and Areski's crimes. However, Yuri presented her with an arrest warrant, leaving her with no choice but to allow Marco to be taken away. In a daring move, Lino threw a flashbang inside the police station, temporarily incapacitating those inside. He seized Marco and attempted to escape, as he knew that if Alexander got hold of Marco, he would likely be killed before revealing any information about Areski. Lino's escape attempt led to a fierce battle against multiple police officers and Alexander's men. Although he faced overwhelming odds, Lino ultimately triumphed and fled the scene in his car, making a desperate call to Alvaro for assistance. As it turned out, Marco had immunity from prosecution in France due to his status as the primary witness in a serious crime. He was protected by high-ranking officials in the police force, making it impossible to punish him within the country. The only option was to deliver him to the Spanish police. A thrilling car chase unfolded between Lino and the pursuing police forces on crowded roads. Julia was alerted to Lino's escape and Marco's abduction, leading her to track them down. She located Lino's car and pursued it into a dry river tunnel. In a high-stakes moment, her car lost control, flipped over, and crashed repeatedly. Remarkably, she emerged from the wreck with only a minor bruise and immediately commandeered another police car, displaying her unyielding determination. Lino sought refuge among the bushes, hoping to evade both Julia and the police officers in pursuit. He reached out to Alvaro, and they devised a plan to meet in a secluded area away from the surveillance of the police. As Alvaro and Marco made their way towards the Spanish border in a disguised van, Lino handed Marco over to Alvaro, hoping that he could be brought to justice by the Spanish police for his numerous crimes. However, they sensed that the French police were closing in, attempting to intercept Marco. To ensure Alvaro's safe return to Spain, Lino devised a plan to divert the attention of the French police away from Marco. Lino engaged the French police in a high-speed pursuit, skillfully evading their attempts to capture him. However, Julia, determined to stop Lino, crashed her car into his, causing his vehicle to lose control and flip over. While Julia was successful in stopping Lino, she was surprised to find that Marco was not in his car. She quickly learned that Alvaro had safely transported Marco and called her teammates to inspect the border for Marco's presence. Meanwhile, Alvaro, attempting to return to Spain through an alternate route, encountered Yuri and his men on the road. Recognizing Yuri as a fellow pursuer of Marco, Alvaro instructed his driver to push through and even rammed the car blocking their path. Miraculously, they managed to escape from Yuri's men. Back on the French side, Lino and Julia anxiously awaited news about Marco and Alvaro. Lino was particularly concerned about Alvaro's safety, fearing that Marco's capture might put him in grave danger. He implored Julia to let him go and assist Alvaro. She reluctantly agreed, and Lino activated the lightning weapon on his car. Julia located Yuri's men and tried to block their car from the side. Lino, following closely behind, unleashed the lightning weapon to disable the pursuing vehicles. While he succeeded in disabling two of Yuri's cars, the low battery power prevented him from taking down the third. Julia, in a daring move, intentionally crashed her car into Alvaro's, causing it to flip over. She swiftly extracted Marco from the overturned vehicle and made a hasty getaway. Lino, not aware of these events, continued his pursuit, determined to catch up with them. Lino once again activated the lightning weapon, this time to disable Julia's car but ensuring her safety. Julia increased the car's nitrous oxide supply to gain speed and stay ahead of Lino. The thrilling chase continued, with Lino using his weapon sparingly to prevent harm to Julia and Marco. In the climax of the movie, the intense car chase comes to a dramatic conclusion as Lino's car, heavily damaged and unable to bear any more stress, shatters into pieces. Julia, witnessing the destruction of Lino's beloved car, feels a profound sense of guilt for her actions that led to its demise. She apologizes to Lino, acknowledging her role in the car's destruction. However, their moment of reflection is short-lived as Yuri and his men arrive at the scene, opening fire on Marco. Amid the chaos, one police officer attempts to negotiate a peaceful resolution, but Yuri refuses and shoots at Marco. Marco manages to shield himself behind a police officer and then escapes to Lino, who is handcuffed inside Julia's car. A gunfight ensues between Yuri and the police, and Marco seizes the opportunity to take control of Julia's car and flee the scene. Alvaro arrives just in time and takes a shot at Yuri, finally putting an end to his threat. With Marco driving and Lino in the passenger seat, a struggle between them unfolds. Lino's determination prevails, causing Marco to lose control of the car and crash it into a tree. The impact renders Marco unconscious, and Lino drags his body to a nearby cafe at the border between France and Spain. Lino contacts local police to report their location. Unexpectedly, Marco regains consciousness and stabs Lino with a fork, causing Lino to collapse in pain. Marco takes the cafe's owner hostage, threatening to kill her to cover his tracks. Julia arrives at the scene, pointing her gun at Marco. Marco demands that Julia let him go to ensure the lady's safety. Reluctantly, Julia drops her gun to the floor, but she surprises Marco by swiftly launching an attack, retrieving her gun, and accidentally firing a shot that injures Marco. Horrified by her actions, Julia fears the consequences for her career. Lino, recovering from his injury, intervenes by firing another shot at Marco, who falls to the ground. Lino intends to protect Julia and her career, ensuring that she is not blamed for Marco's death. The movie concludes with Lino's car, now in a state of disrepair, ready to be destroyed on the orders of the police. Areski, the cunning antagonist, makes a mysterious appearance, signaling his intention to continue his criminal endeavors. The movie ends on an open note, leaving the audience to imagine what may transpire next. Ultimately, the movie's message highlights the futility of revenge, emphasizing that seeking vengeance can lead to a cycle of destruction and suffering. The proverb mentioned underscores the idea that revenge often has dire consequences, affecting both the avenger and the target. To watch more video like this, click on the videos on your screen, and don't forget to let me know how you feel about today's video in the comments down below. And at last I will say stay safe and stay healthy. See you next videos.